I'm Ina Fried, Chief Technology Correspondent at Axios, author of our daily AI Plus newsletter, which if you don't get, or any of our newsletters, you can go to axios.com/newsletters. It's free. I'll be in your inbox every day, for better or worse. I'm very excited about our final conversation this morning. I've known Andrew Bosworth, the CTO of Meta, for a long time, and always has a very smart take, not just on where we are, but where things are going. So please help me welcome Andrew Bosworth. So you guys have always said the metaverse was a long-term bet, but a bunch of cuts last week suggesting, some recalibration was needed. Why the recalibration? What caused it? What does it free up?
Yeah, well, I want to talk about three different layers of this. The first one is our construct of the metaverse. And this is on us. We've never communicated as well as we wanted to. The old saying, the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. We've always thought when you're looking at your phone, and we've all had this experience, especially if you're at dinner with a teenager, someone's looking at their phone, they are not with you. Like physically, they are there, but mentally, they are transported someplace completely different with other people. So we wanted to bring a rich version of that to life, and we still plan on doing that. There's two things. It's like any investment. You're going to look at how you do over the course of years, and you're going to reinvest in some areas and trim your losses in others. For us, we're seeing tremendous growth of our metaverse on mobile. Horizon is this thing that started on VR headsets, but obviously there's much more users today on mobile phones. So we've been pivoting over the last year to focus on the mobile market, and it's going really well. And so you kind of want to double down on that. Having to build everything twice, build it once for a mobile phone and once again for VR, is a tremendous tax on the team. You'd rather just build, grow a giant audience, and then work from both places from a position of strength. The second piece is on the VR side, we really had this integrated concept of where Horizon and the VR vision were the same thing. So when you put the headset on, you're immediately in this kind of co-present, accessible space. That is a real challenging piece of work to land from a standpoint of there's lots of people who put this headset on for lots of different reasons. You want to support all those different use cases. And the lack of focus comes at an expense of user experience and great expense in terms of development cost. So what we're doing now is that we have two much more focused bets coming out on the other side. The VR, we're going to let VR be what it does great. We're going to have focus a lot more on the third-party content library, the ecosystem that's developed there. And on Horizon, we're focusing a lot more on mobile. To do this, of course, it's tragic anytime your plans change and there's a human cost. We found a bunch of roles that we just didn't need anymore. So we did end up downsizing the effort on the metaverse specifically. Though on net, Reality Labs isn't downsizing. We're basically taking all of those and taking the investment on wearables, which is growing so rapidly for us.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go next.
And I love your glasses.
I'm wearing a pair of the Meta glasses. I use them, capture my softball games. I was playing ice hockey over the weekend. That's been bigger than you thought, and bigger than you thought for a couple years now. What did Meta learn? Did you learn something from VR that made that right, or was it just the right, you hit a price point? I mean, what I always suspected was what you managed to do in the glasses that you didn't do in the metaverse, but frankly, few people really do in hardware, is say, what can we deliver today in the form factor that people want versus what is the form factor we have to deliver in order to have all the features we want?
Yeah, there's probably a deeper lesson that I need to introspect on more there, which is with VR, we've always wanted it to be all things to all people, which is always, anyone who's developed a product knows that's a challenging place to start from. And I think we're getting more focused now. With the glasses, we never burdened ourselves that way. We were content to build a small, loyal audience for people for whom having the audio and the camera was enough. We got a little lucky there. We built a great product, which I'm convinced, just those merits, you and I would have used it. But then AI hit right at the same time. And people don't realize this. When the Ray-Ban Metas came out and they launched with an AI assistant on the glasses that could access the camera, we didn't plan that assistant when we built the product. We landed that in the last 4 months before launch. It was never theorized. Tremendous tailwind to have arguably the best interface for AI, contextual AI in the real world, already kind of built in on the pipeline when you can bring the software to bear on it. So we got a little bit lucky there, and that's been the big difference maker for us. Now when you look at where we are with Ray-Ban Meta 2s, the Oakley Vanguards, the Oakley Houstons, these are all products that the consumers are coming because they like the AI features, and they're staying because oh, you've built a great product here that does a bunch of other things really well, like photos, and I can take my phone calls, and I can listen to my podcasts, and I can listen to my music.
So I kind of come at it the opposite way.
the other
I've
way,
been
that's right.
using it since Gen 1.
The original.
But, Meta has an incredibly sweeping policy around AI and data. Basically, the policy says Meta can use that information in almost any way imaginable. And so I actually don't use Meta AI at all. And I don't use a feature that would allow Meta AI because essentially the photo that I take, if I ask a question about it, Meta can use that to train its systems. It can advertise me in any way possible. ChatGPT is obviously moving towards ads, but they laid some ground rules of we're not going to use this way. Do you think, given where we are and the broadening adoption, you need to narrow that privacy policy so that someone like me can trust that I can share a photo without it becoming training fodder for your AI?
Yeah, this is a great market test happening right now in terms of what people are, there's some value being created. And of course, if the AI understanding the types of questions you're asking, the specific context around those questions, means that in the future, the AI is going to be better at answering those types of questions. So you really run the risk of actually robbing future consumers of value by not allowing that kind of training. I do think that over time, the technology behind AI is going to evolve a lot to allow much more personalized model development, model training, segmentation. Today, that's not really possible in the way that models are built and inferences run. More and more is being done with context, though, and more can be done on device. Better and better models are becoming available on device. So over time, I think there's 3 different ways that we see this playing out. One of which, the way that we do it today, is there's a bunch of anything that's happening on device is kind of totally fine. Like that's a device that you bought. It's happening between your phone and your glasses, and nobody needs to be worried about it. That's going to be pretty safe and secure. If it's going to leave the device and go to the server, then you get a warning from us. It says, hey, you've got to opt into this because it's going to the server. Once it goes to the server, that's some risk. That's some risk that you have. Then there's a third tier, which is like, okay, when it's on the server, is it staying there and like you guys are having it and it's training on it, it's part of the data, or is it ephemeral? You're using it for now, but then it's going away. I think a lot of customers would be fine, for example, with, yeah, I'm okay with you sending this image to the server to run inference on it, and then we remove it. So we have versions of all of these different things. We have on-device running, we have temporary inference running, and then you have permanent training sets running. We don't currently have a single policy that unites all this across Meta AI as you use it on your phone versus Meta AI as it's used in the wearables. And as you point out, different labs are taking very different approaches. So there's like a market test running right now to see what consumer preferences are and how that plays out.
Because, today when, I, say you have a strange looking sore on your leg and you're like, hey, Meta, what's this? I don't necessarily want Meta to know that about me forever. And I'm curious, do you think there are categories of information that Meta will eventually say, we won't use this information? Because again, it's not just for training algorithms. That's one concern. But also, you all are great at this. You've built an incredible business. Facebook and Instagram know me super well. They were trying to sell me Diet Coke Crocs yesterday because they know I like Diet Coke. I'm actually fine with that.
Did you buy them?
No. They were Crocs still. So you got a little work on the algorithm.
That's a balance. Yeah, I understand.
But what I'm not okay with is people are having really personal conversations with these AI assistants. And I want to know that information isn't going to be following me around the web forever.
Yeah, for sure. I actually think in the limit, the way I expect AI to develop, I think the answer is you actually do want your AI to have access to every single piece of context that it can about you, including like weird rashes and your Diet Coke, your embarrassing Diet Coke crock habit. I think you want that because you're going to get better guidance, better advice, better solutions, more complete information in the future from your AI. We get ourselves into a little bit of trouble when we're like, now Meta knows that. What is it? Meta's a corporation. A corporation doesn't know anything. And a model knows something. What does that mean? What's accessible to users? What's stored in a format that law enforcement or a rogue employee or a hacker could get access to? So there's different tiers of what it means. If the data is encoded in a model, I think we're probably okay with it. It's like pretty inscrutable. If the and also there's some plausible deniability there. If the data is encoded, is just in like out there and available, that's pretty different. Obviously, employees don't have access to this information, and it's all very kind of secure in that sense. So, like I said, this ultimately is going to be a market test. This ultimately is going to be a thing where consumers, who I think are pretty well informed actually about what the options are. One of the things, my principles in Reality Labs, number one principle that we develop with is never surprise people. And so people are very well informed. They can choose to use it or not use it, as you have, and we'll see how it plays out. I mean, I think that's ultimately consumers are going to decide what their level of comfort is in exchange for the value they're getting for a service.
Well, I would love to actually continue just this discussion for hours, and we will do that offline. But I do want to, for the benefit of others, get to some other topics. One of the things I've been asking everyone, there's a lot of talk, is there an AI bubble? And, I've been kind of reframing that as, let's be clear, we're not saying, is AI real or not? The question is really an economic one of, is the level of investment right for the size of the market? For example, I think you would agree that the metaverse VR has had a couple bubbles along the way, not because you don't believe in VR, but because the economics were not there in the short term to justify the investment. Do you see something similar with AI? And if so, who's vulnerable and who's safe?
Yeah, what's the old saying, right? There's no bad ideas, just bad timing. And I think that's always, ever present in our minds and technology. You want to be at the forefront, but you don't want to be in the bleeding edge of the forefront. It's pretty costly out there. I'll say two things. From a societal, cultural perspective, this is all good news. You're getting a ton of private capital, building out a bunch of investment that will be useful to us. We don't regret railroads, telecom, fiber. Oh, thank you. Telecom, fiber.
Just took a picture of them.
All the different pieces, and I knew you took a picture because we have a privacy-friendly narrative. It's a whole thing. So all the build-outs, infrastructure build-outs of this kind that we've done in history, we have ended up feeling great about and made tremendously good use of. And in the process of doing that, a lot of companies went overboard. Now, I will say, if you look at the rate of leverage versus, for example, the .com build-out versus the railroad build-out, we are nowhere near as leveraged as we were in those major previous infrastructure bubbles. So it's not clear to me that we're at that level yet. And I think consumers and societies are ultimately the beneficiaries of this tremendous kind of land grab of power and data centers and GPU capacity and whatnot. On the flip side, there will be winners and losers. Obviously, if I knew who they were, I wouldn't be on stage, I'd be day trading. I think it's really impossible to tell today. I think you really hit something in your intro to this question, which is exactly I really agree with. I think we're finally having the nuanced conversation. For years, I felt like this weird, almost person without a tribe in the AI discussions, because I don't really believe that this thing that we're building is AGI or is this kind of big scary thing. But I also think it's hugely important and very, very valuable. And so we're now actually having a very robust conversation of cool, it's a valuable thing. How much should we invest in accelerating the value that we can get out of it? What we are observing is that for conventional consumer responses, the curve is starting to flatten. So if you go from Gemini 2.5 to Gemini 3, GPT-4 to GPT-5.2, your answers to regular questions that you ask as you go about your day, maybe they get slightly better, but they're not tremendously better. If you're trying to do a legal analysis or you're trying to do a health analysis, they get way better. So these niches get way better. So now we're in this world where you need the data and the evals and the compute and the power to run the compute to really charge ahead in each of these niches and kind of tackle them one by one. My personal feeling is it is absolutely in a 30-year view going to be worth the investment we're making right now. All the companies can't survive 30 years of variance, and I don't know who's on what side of what. But it's very exciting.
And obviously Meta is in a little bit of a different position because you guys have a big existing business to fund things, which some of the others don't. Well, with the last couple minutes we have, I want to shift gears. You wear many hats at Meta, but you wear one other hat. You've signed up with the Army. You've been a reserve officer for this new Detachment 201, kind of bringing tech knowledge, you and Kevin from OpenAI and others. How is that going? And then I have a follow-up.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a real honor to be able to do this work. And I work when I'm with the Army in my reservist capacity. I don't work on anything connected to my work at Meta, obviously kind of for obvious reasons. So I'm working on the organic industrial base, the supply chain that provides weapons and munitions to our troops, both us and our allies. And it's been really eye-opening. Your biggest fear when you go into a new arena like this, especially something as different as military is to what I do day to day, your biggest fear is that you just can't help. There's that your skill set doesn't translate. I have been delighted to find not only do a lot of the things that I've built up in my career are valuable, they've been found valuable, and that's tremendously gratifying. However, it is a long ways from, I've been in 6 months now, it's been a long ways from here to really having an impact that we can be proud of. So there's a lot of work ahead of us. But I have to tell you, it's been different than I expected. It's been a tremendous honor. Everyone I've had the pleasure to serve with has been just outstanding, committed, dedicated public servants of tremendous quality. I think we have a lot to be proud of, actually.
And I have to ask, when you see what's going on in the world, does anything that's out there right now give you pause, whether it's Greenland or what's happening in Minnesota, about kind of giving your support to this administration?
So when I first got approached for this Detachment 201, it was under the previous administration. I don't see the work that we're doing as remotely partisan. And in a lot of ways, I'm not saying it's not connected to it, obviously, in the sense that geopolitics, we're all connected. The work that I'm doing has a credible chance of saving lives. And I really believe in that. And I think a lot of times we can get ourselves caught up in a storm of conversations when what you really need to do, at least I feel in my life, and this is kind of how I was raised, is look locally at what you can do to contribute to problems that you believe are real problems, and just do the best that you can there. And I think if a lot of people are doing that together, you end up with pretty good outcomes. The way I describe it often is like there's weather. There's just weather happening, and it's happening at a high level of altitude, and I can't control the weather. What I can control is my little corner of the world and how we prepare for that weather and how we make sure that we're set to weather whatever comes.
But I imagine when you sort of signed up for this, literally signed up for this, you were imagining making the military more efficient so it could do its work around the world, not on the ground in Minnesota.
I think everybody who's doing work, so we have a wonderful democratic process, and you and I have had this discussion once before. We have a wonderful democratic process, and if you believe in it, then you believe in it. And there's laws that are passed that give different government agencies different authorities. And I think those authorities should be able to do it efficiently and effectively. I don't think we should count on them having to deal with arcane record searches where they have to physically go through, physical filing cabinets to get information. I think they should have access to the information they have access to. If we don't feel comfortable with it, we have democratic recourse for that. And that's the correct avenue of recourse, is at the polls. And I really believe in that. And so, you can't believe in democracy halfway. This is what it looks like, and I believe in it all the way.
Well, everyone, we're out of time, but thank you so much.